Hello, Yes and community, and welcome back to another Weekly Spark. Most of the time, I share weekly sparks that are actionable practices and tips that you can implement into your life. Today, I'm answering your question about what happens when we implement these practices into our life on a powerful and consistent basis. Today, we are sitting down with one of my incredible clients, Monica, who is the CEO of Music Tree Schools in Pomona, California. She is sharing her story of how coaching transformed her life, specifically as a mompreneur and an authentic leader. During our time together, she answers questions such as what was life like before coaching? How did she choose coaching over therapy and what's the difference? What happens inside of a life coaching session? And what were her 3 greatest takeaways from her coaching experience? At the very end of this interview, she has some words of wisdom for you if you are considering working with a coach. Before diving into today's Weekly Spark, scroll down below, hit that subscribe button and the notifications so that you can receive free alignment practices, tips, and interviews just like this every Tuesday evening. And if you're especially excited about today's topic, hit that like button so I know to make more videos just like this for you. So how about we start at the very start? So take yourself back to what your life was like, what challenges you were grappling with, and why coaching came into your life.
If I think back to that time when I met you, being a voice teacher, being a music teacher brings so much joy to my life. But behind all that, there was so much, it felt like chaos in my life. I would remember there were times like I have like 2 minutes to get into a lesson, or I'm running late. I was so full of like that anxiety. And that was something that I really hid from my students. People really didn't know that although I was an entrepreneur, although I was, teaching, they had no idea that I was battling with so much anxiety and I just felt unorganized like all the time.
So what was that, the internal experience, almost strategically putting on this face? Things are okay, everything's in order, but behind the curtain for things to feel chaos.
It was really conflicting. The only thing I can say is that I almost felt like I wasn't living this authentic life. It felt a little embarrassing that I was not open with who I was behind the curtain. Not that you
Mhm.
go and you spill your beans of your personal life to like everybody, but just the constant ups and downs, it's tiring.
Mm.
So that
Mhm.
constant internal battle, if you look at it from even like a scientific level, right? Like the body's constantly going through high stress, like cortisol, this is happening, and then this, and then that, and then this, and then that. Like, let's say I teach you a lesson and then maybe I'd have like an hour break between. And that was the hour break for me to like curl up in a ball or like to just sit there. And then as soon as like 10 minutes before the next lesson, it's like, okay, like I'm ready. I felt like I was like acting all the time.
Was that sensation of feeling tired, feeling the ups and downs, feeling like you're acting and not living authentically, was that what brought you then to coaching years later?
Ultimately, what brought me to the coaching is that I've been in therapy off and on for the last, I don't know, over 10 years. At that point, I was actually about to go back to therapy and then had gotten introduced to the idea of coaching because of you. I thought, you know what, like I've been in therapy for a really long time. Like I don't really know what the difference is between coaching and therapy. I didn't know what ride I was along for, but no. um, but it was kind of just one of those things where I was kind of ready to gain some kind of balance in my life. My story is that not only am I an entrepreneur, but then I became single and pregnant. So single and pregnant, by the time you reached out to me, I think my son was probably 4 or 5 months old. So, I had a young baby at home and I was really at that point like I needed something. I was struggling so much with that transition in my life, struggling so much with my purpose, struggling so much with understanding like who I was that at that point I was kind of like, what do I have to lose? I went and I did it. And next thing you know, like I was in coaching for a whole year.
What I love about that story is you had such an open mind entering coaching. And also you were at this place of like, I do feel exhausted. My identity has just been challenged because now I'm a mom and a business owner. And how does that work? And that's exactly what any first conversation is all about, is just give it a shot, see if this is a good fit. And if not, that's okay. So tell me, if you went in with that big open mind, what led to then not only signing 1 contract, but signing 2 contracts?
I feel like the first session was such a powerful session that still till this day, when I'm faced with a certain choice or something that feels challenging, I still refer back to that first session. I have that same rock like sitting right next to my desk. I think to myself, like, you have a choice. And I think that was what I kind of thought with life coaching. It was like, I could either stay in the place that I'm at and it's fine. Life can be here. It's not like it's completely horrible, but I also can pick the rock up and I can move it. For the first time, I was really giving myself a leap of faith to give myself the autonomy to take control of my life.
Because we're on the topic, and because a lot of my clients actually either are currently working with a therapist and me at the same time, or came to me after working with a therapist. And just to put it out there, they're both wonderful means of support. Can you explain a little bit of the difference, at least in your experience, the difference between therapy and coaching?
The therapy that I experience is a lot of it's talk therapy and a lot of it's talking. And I think getting to the root and understanding, maybe where our wounds come from. But the biggest thing is like, in therapy, you're spending so much time finding the root of where your wounds come from that you don't necessarily get the chance to dig deep and then be like, okay, so here's my wound. Like I know where my wound came from. I know that I want to, move forward in my life. What do I do next? I think what coaching is like it's so individualized to each person. To me, coaching gives you, the autonomy, the freedom to actually make the decision to say, I'm going to choose this. And realizing like, wow, you have the power to choose which way you want to go when it comes to your life.
I also have had both. And again, my clients have had both. Therapy is so valuable to understand, to really dig deep. And of course, for severe mental illness or just mental illness generally, to get the understanding. And then coaching is, okay, what do I do with it then? Like now that I know, what do I want to do with it? And being in that space of trusting yourself to do whatever you're called to, not to have something assigned to you, but to say, okay, this is what I'm feeling in this moment. This is where I'm going to go for it. And then to have someone along your side as you go for it.
Yeah, and it's not easy. It's actually it's a little scary, right? To have that autonomy.
Absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
that I think the big thing I've learned is that a lot of us are afraid to take that freedom.
Yeah. And anything new can feel really scary. And I remember our first contract together, freedom was one of your biggest words. So thinking about that topic specifically, how has the definition or the experience of freedom changed
Mhm.
from when we started to now?
Back then, I thought that freedom was, that I was going to be happy when I had freedom driving the kind of car that I wanted, living in the home that I wanted, doing everything that I wanted to on the day, like on a daily basis. Doesn't mean that I don't think that I will attain that dream home or the dream car and all that. What I realize now is that is all just a product of what happens when you're continuing to do your purpose. Freedom is more being like, I'm going to get up today and I'm going to choose to be authentic,
Mm.
that I don't have to show up to the studio lying to everybody about having a chaotic morning,
Mm.
or that I'm masking the way that, things are. That's freedom, not being trapped in your fears and the lies that, you could tell yourself, that you just like authentically accept yourself every moment. That, I'm doing a Zoom interview right now, and as I look around, like my house is messy AF. Like, you know what I mean? And being like, it's cool. I found a corner in my like kitchen where I'm gonna like do this right now, and that's okay. Like, it's been a busy week. Like,
Mhm.
normally I would be so anxious over the fact that my dishes aren't done. Like so anxious over the fact that like there's laundry in the dryer right now and it would make me cry. I still enjoy like being as clean as possible or whatever and being organized, but there's that freedom in saying like it's okay, Monica, like there's freedom in giving yourself permission to just be like it's fine.
And so, what is the difference between right now looking at your home and being like, the dishes aren't done, there's laundry in the dryer, there's laundry in my dryer as well. Like these things are unorganized. But right now, you talking, I can feel your presence. I can feel your calmness, which it sounds like has come from this place of I have the freedom to choose that this is okay. How does this reality, because externally it's almost very similar to what you explained your before coaching to be. So how is this different than before when life felt chaotic, but this is a much different experience that we're witnessing?
It's a different experience because there's just a ton of acceptance. There's just
Mm.
there's an acceptance, and there's also using the word presence again, like being present. Because, back then, there could have been all those things going on. I remember there was a coaching session that I still even think back to whenever I'm starting to feel stressed out. Is it is it chaos or is it perceived chaos?
Mhm.
Really, it's not that big of a deal. Like, so what? There's dishes in the sink. Back then, I would just wanting always to make sure everything was in order before being able to execute. When you're not present and you're just thinking about all the different things that's going on, you feel like a mess. Life doesn't stop, like life doesn't change just because you go to life coaching. All of a sudden, you're not like, "Ooh, I love sitting in traffic," or "Ooh, I love running late." Like, something just happens where you're like, it's cool. Like, let me learn something. Once you choose presence, it just makes life much easier.
Take us inside the sessions. How did you come to this place of these are all things that I can learn from? These are all things that I can relate with and choose to be present with rather than put up this mask and facade.
A lot of crying. No, just kidding. Actually, not
Well,
really kidding.
sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes in the actual coaching sessions, I think that becoming present also was accepting myself for who I am and realizing that I didn't need to be perfect. It was such a beautiful thing for me to accept every part of me. To be like, yeah, you're right. Like there's a part of you that kind of is a chatterbox, or there's a part of you that panics or has like a ton of energy and is this and that. But there's nothing wrong with saying, I love you, but right now I need you to sit down because I can't hear, like I can't be present at the moment. But when the time is right, because this part of you is so great and I don't want to get rid of it, I'm going to bring you back out to help me solve this other problem or something like that. It
Mhm.
was really such a big thing for me to give, different parts of who I am, like caricatures, and like it really helped me to understand myself.
Yeah. And you used the word acceptance earlier today of this acceptance and what acceptance is, as you're saying, it isn't telling any part of ourselves that this is bad and wrong and we have to get rid of this part of ourselves. Even the anxiety, even the fear, even these, less comfortable emotions, it's to meet them. And as you said, we created wonderful caricatures for many parts of you to
Yeah.
meet them, to really like get to know them and be like, okay, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Where are you helpful? Where are you not? And in meeting them and building that relationship, then having the awareness and the capability to first recognize, have the awareness of, oh, this part of me is really present. And then have that autonomy, the choice to say, and right now you're going to sit down. And I thought it was so beautiful, not only the words, but how you said it, this very compassionate tone of, I can't hear, I love you. Please sit down just for a minute and I'll give you a task later. I'll give you a puzzle later.
It's such a different place than even the way that I spoke to myself in the past. Like at the beginning of coaching, if someone ever said to me like, "Tell yourself you love yourself," I'd be like, "Okay, that's weird." Like like I don't want to or whatever. But I think being able that's part of the acceptance, being able to speak to myself and say, "Hey, like I love you. Like I love this part of who I am or who you are." But I need to be present right now, or there is noise happening. And I instead of scolding myself and being like, oh, why did you do that again? Or like, why can't you ever just calm down? Or, why are you so anxious? Or why are you this? Like realizing like, hey, like, yeah, there is no wrong part to me. Like who I am
Mhm.
is who I am and everything about it is okay.
I feel so much love for you right now and for thinking back to the transformation of self-talk. I witnessed that of how it was in the beginning. The instinct was you just need to sit down and calm down, and that's okay. That was where we were at in the journey. And watching that slowly transform, and there were a few surprising moments for me when it was just like something had clicked between last session and the current session, even when life is still chaotic. Like I remember a few sessions where it was like, my son is crying in the car, like I need to go inside, something needs to happen. And historically, that would have felt chaotic and that energy would have fed into the sessions. But instead, it was like, this is just what's happening. Let's do 5 minutes. Or, the few sessions of like, hey, I'm going to be 5 minutes late just because that's, and it didn't come from this place of being ashamed. It was just this like compassionate, powerful, and trusting place. This session is going to be valuable no matter what. And I'm going to let it be and let life be and just show up and be present.
You talked about like what the difference was between the first contract and the second contract, like the first 6 months and
Mhm.
the second 6 months. The second 6 months was a lot more of wanting to just make sure that I was, I don't know, taking it a lot more seriously. Like, I mean, I don't want to say that I didn't take the first 6 months seriously, but in the first 6 months, like, it's like I was given the tools. I understood myself in a different way, but I was still kind of like derailing every once in a while. And I was still feeling kind of like up and down and this and that. And then once I went into the second contract, I had this like determination to say, like, I have this tool belt, I'm building that house.
Mhm.
Like the tools are
Mhm.
here, I'm gonna do it.
And I remember that decision to go for another 6 months was even a little bit of a, I wouldn't even call it hesitation, but like almost like another one of those moments of, "Oh, this is an option." And like this is
Yeah.
okay to go for another 6 months. And so let's use that as kind of a jumping off point. Do you want to share some of the 3 biggest takeaways or outcomes that you've experienced? You've shared a lot today already, but really just to outline them clearly.
I feel the ability to tap into feeling alive at any moment. So it's like that presence, right? That at any moment, like I could have a storm around me. I have this power and this ability to just get into that moment of feeling alive. I wanted so badly to feel alive before. And now I can just feel alive at any moment.
What's so powerful that that's one of your biggest takeaways is that that was something that didn't exist at all before. We even have that documented because you shared on Instagram after one of our very first sessions. You were like, I was asked when I felt alive and I didn't have an answer. And I remember it was like this moment of taking a step back. Have I ever felt alive? And what does that mean? And that kind of rocking your world a little bit. And for that to now be on this side and to say, I can feel alive at any moment, like it's not just, I now have a few instances where I felt alive. It's like, I have access to this at any moment. That is a profound shift.
The second one that I wrote here, feeling in control of my success. I know that I have the tools to make the choices to keep going in the things that I choose. And I don't even think nowadays, like I don't even think success in the sense of just like my business, but success in my life.
Mm-hmm.
That I am in control of what feels like success to me. To add to that, my idea of success is a lot different than, what it was before. Like maybe like it doesn't matter like even what the world thinks is success. It's what success is to me. I can make that choice to do it how I want to do it.
Mm-hmm. So not only the being in control of how it happens and knowing and trusting yourself to make it happen, but also having the autonomy for how to define it and what it will look like. So the how and the what.
Yeah. And then the third takeaway that I wrote down here is acceptance. Accepting, myself for who I am. I think the biggest thing is accepting life transitions. Transition in general for me was a very hard thing in my life. I had a really hard time for example, like if I would move from a new place to another place, it could be like 6 months later and there'll still be boxes in my trunk because I could just never transition and settle or just like accept like that there's like you're taking a leap or you're going to the next thing. Even like leaving coaching, I think I wouldn't know how to transition into being like you're free, like but that was really for me something that really frustrated me in life because I wouldn't be ready to just move or take the step up. And so like right now with Music Tree, with putting my 30-day notice in on Monday, I'm so calm about it. I'm like, cool, I have until this day and I'll check in with the teachers. Have you, cleaned out your desk? Like, I'm going to go in on this day. And like, just, it's not even this worry anymore. I'm just like, oh, if we don't need it, just throw it away. Like, we'll figure it out. And like, before I just be so stuck in not executing and moving until the very last minute and making things even more chaotic for myself because I couldn't handle the stress of change.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I guess like I accept just like floating down the river in life.
Yeah. And to combine that with your second one of defining what success is and trusting that you can, not just floating down any river, it's floating down the one that you've chosen to be on.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
definitely.
Yeah. So just to dig one layer deeper with these 3 biggest takeaways, what does that look like? How has that changed your life?
I think in relationships, it's really changed my life, the way that I am a leader, being able to just be raw and real with people. For example, like my team or something, like if we're having a meeting and talking to them, one of the most, I think, profound things that happened to me at one of our meetings that really meant a lot to me, one of my teachers came up to me. He was like, you really showed me today how human you are
Mm.
and that we're following under a leader that's so human because when I first met you I just thought you were this lady that just had her whole life together and I
Mm.
and I and it feels good to be like fighting this fight with someone that feels just like me.
Mm.
And I was
Mhm.
just like, wow, because, maybe before as a leader, I wouldn't be authentic in that way to say, okay, you guys, this is where we're at in the pandemic. This is how I'm feeling, and just kind of showing them. And I think giving myself the autonomy to be free allows you to trust other people to be free and not so
Mm.
much attached to the outcomes or expectations of how you expect people to be, because you give yourself that freedom as well. So you can share that freedom with other people. And so, we had like a music tree giving and we had dinner, and I had, the teachers write down what they were thankful for. It was really nice to hear that a lot of them, were thankful for being at Music Tree, that they were thankful for the creative freedom that I give them as a boss. They feel good that I trust them.
Mm.
And I think that comes a lot from like me trusting myself. Me
Right?
trust me
Yeah.
trusting and learning to let go and trust that it's gonna work out, like, they've got it. Because before I couldn't do that. And then, motherhood is a lot, I mean, I don't wanna use the word easy because motherhood is not easy, but you can even meditate through, like, a baby crying, or you can through the tough
Mm.
moments, find being alive even in those moments.
The overall theme there was connection with other people, connection with your child, connection with who's working with you, connection with family and friends, and not just a surface level connection. It's that connection, as you're sharing, of I am fully who I am. And of course, every now and then there's bounds, right? Like if we're at a workplace or, different settings, be authentic in the way that it makes sense in that moment. And that transfer that I think sometimes we don't realize will happen in doing our own work, it definitely transfers to other people in the examples that you shared of when I can accept myself, I accept others. When I can trust myself, I trust others. And that just builds, it allows you to connect, and it also empowers others to do their work and be comfortable. Like the example that you gave of someone saying, thank you so much for showing your human side. And that human side intentionally wasn't shown over a year ago at your place of work.
Yeah, and then I was gonna actually say one more thing, that I feel has changed a lot. It took me a really long time for a while to find the joy in, like, singing. Like, even though I'm a
Mm.
teacher and I had, like, all this joy in helping my students find their authentic sound, I was struggling with my authentic sound, and I was not actually enjoying making music or performing or anything like that because I didn't feel authentic. And I'm finally in this place where, like, I can hear a recording of myself singing and I'm like, "Wow, I really like that." Or, like, we'll be in a
Mm.
rehearsal practicing and I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, did that not sound good?" And I can say that about myself, but I couldn't ever do that because the problem was that I was having such a hard time being present. There was so much noise going on in my head that I couldn't focus. I cannot say how much focus and presence has changed my life in a creative way. It's like I've all of a sudden tapped into this potential where I can understand these things or learn music in such a like in a faster way. I can be more expressive. I could do this or I could do that because I'm allowing myself to be authentic and I'm actually enjoying it a lot more.
I'm like giddy with excitement because as you're saying, like tapping into this potential. So not only is it impacting the present moment, but we then know it's impacting the future. It's impacting your business. It's impacting yourself and your expression and yeah, your personal potential.
I should probably share my story, take different recordings of my voice over the years and show how different it sounds when there is just no tension in your voice. There's just true, pure, raw, floating tone and emotion that's coming out. I was performing before, not just being. And now, just like singing, I can. And it's the weirdest thing how much it even just changes the way that your voice sounds the moment that you like let go of all that. The stress and the chaos does to your body physically.
Hmm. Absolutely. That holistic impact.
Yeah.
So you've spent extra time with me today, and thank you for that. And thank you for sharing so much of your story. Any last takeaways? And also, what would you recommend for someone who's considering coaching? Do you have any thoughts to tell them specifically?
I guess the only last thoughts that I have are I'm so grateful that you reached out to me. I'm just so grateful that you thought of me. It was such an amazing year, I think, in coaching, and I grew so much. To anybody that is thinking about coaching, that, if you're even just slightly thinking about it, if you're even willing to just like say, hey, I'm going to give it a try, like clearly it's a yes. Like just do it. But I think that it changes things so much. The crazy thing is a lot of times, you think you're going to coaching just for business. The biggest thing I've learned is you can't separate like all those different things in your life. You have to be you so that you can be the best in every aspect of your life. And I think that that's what coaching taught me. Like you said, tapping into that potential when you can become the best version of you and get those tools to keep working towards going forward. You should totally take the leap of faith and trust that the universe is going to take care of it. It's been great. And like I said, in the months that, the few months that I have not been in coaching, whenever there is that moment that, something happens or I go through an event, I can't say how many times these conversations or like, I'm like, ooh, in session, blah, 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 of whatever, like, I remember this, or I just use so many of the tools in my life now. I'm pretty sure if I wasn't in coaching, I don't know how I would have been able to make it in this pandemic. I don't know how I would have been able to grow a business by like 40% in a pandemic, you know,
Hell yeah.
like in the scariest times, seeing businesses fail left and right, and it might feel scary. And like I know that, I guess I'm talking to someone that might look like me, that maybe finances feel scary sometimes and like
Yeah.
taking that leap of faith. But just knowing that, like getting yourself together, everything always aligns at exactly the right time, like when you need it, and everything always works out. But you have to be ready for it.
I am so proud of you. I'm
Thank
so honored that
you.
I was along the ride, along the journey. We spent 6 months finding these tools and building this toolbox, and then we spent 6 months applying it in the middle of a pandemic, and I saw how powerfully and strongly you stepped forward. And a lot of change has already happened and manifested externally. You have your new studio space. You mentioned a few things during today's call, and there's just so much more to come as well. You are incredible. You have
Thank you.
had such a beautiful journey, and it's so beautiful to witness and to truthfully to sit here and watch how you are speaking today compared to over a year ago. It is night and day in the most beautiful way. I'm so
Thank
proud of
you.
you, and
Thank
congratulations
you
on
so
all the
much.
big wins. And thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
sharing your story. I know that it's going to impact someone and help someone out.
I really hope that it does. And it feels good to be here. And I don't know. I guess I'm speechless. It's really cool. That's it.
How incredible was Monica's story? Comment below what was most inspirational or stood out most to you with Monica's story. If you would like to hear more client testimonials just like this from those who have worked with me at Yes And, visit yesandbymarin.com/testimonials. If you are ready to start your own journey, your first step is taking a free quiz. I have a quiz at yesandbymarin.com/quiz that walks you through whether you are intention or action oriented. And knowing this information about yourself helps you to determine what your first step toward an aligned life looks like. That is all for today. My name is Marin Lauka. I am the owner of Yes And I empower you to get rid of those limiting beliefs and false expectations so that you can own your potential and experience true fulfillment. To support this work and to support yourself, like this video, share it with a friend you think would also be inspired by Monica's story, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications below so that you don't miss next week's video and all the alignment tips and practices to come. I'll see you then.